The demon screams in agony, tormented by a painful vision. An army of undead bearing destruction rises in his memory. Monsters mercilessly attack defenseless people. Suddenly, a dazzling explosion of hope flashes in the distance. It is the Empire's strongest swordsman entering battle with the demon commander. His gaze burns with fury. He is ready for the decisive fight. The swordsman unleashes a series of crushing attacks on the enemy. However, the opponent easily blocks his powerful strike. Their forces collide, creating an explosion of incredible power. The swordsman Eos emerges victorious, acknowledging the power of the Hell Knight. Eos stands over the defeated Death Knight. The Hell Knight, leaning on his sword, struggles to rise to his feet. His crimson eye burns with pain and humiliation. But beneath the mask, a human eye suddenly appears. Under the helmet is the face of a determined female warrior. She looks around the ruined city with a heavy sigh. The torn banner of the Empire flutters over the ruins. A new enemy gloats, having brought the Empire to its knees. He declares that revenge is sweeter the longer you wait for it. His millennia-old plan for revenge has finally come to fruition. Archlich Dorgo laughs ominously, enjoying his victory. Emperor Howard screams in despair, cursing the killer of his people. The Lich is only amused by his words, mockingly catching the curse. He announces that the time has come for his own coronation. Dorgo boasts that for the first time in history, he has united the entire continent, and now he rightfully deserves the title of the new emperor. He thanks his demon kings and Death Knight for their service. The Archlich orders the imperial crown to be brought to him immediately. The precious symbol of power shines one last time. The female knight submissively presents the crown to her new lord. The Death Knight stands before the Lich, ready to hand over the crown. Dorgo mockingly asks how he should reward his loyal servant. But in her eyes burns not submission, but cold determination. The knight remains silent, ignoring her lord's question. The Lich reminds her that she is merely his slave, undeserving of reward. Suddenly, the girl throws the crown straight into the Archlich's face. Dorgo fails to react to the audacious throw in time. The symbol of power shatters into pieces from the blow to his skull. The Lich's hand flares with crimson energy from his overwhelming rage. He unleashes all his magical power on the traitor. But instead of her, the faithful demon kings take the hit. The female knight remains unharmed while her former comrades writhe in pain. The Archlich is bewildered, as his attack harmed his own servants. She finally speaks the words she had long kept inside. The girl declares that from now on she acts according to her own will. The Lich is furious, as he was sure he had completely erased her consciousness. But she had only been watching everything, trapped in her own body under his control. Dorgo is stunned by her words and unyielding will to resist. He calls her his greatest creation with a sinister smile, and allows her to vent her anger until he finds a way to subdue her again. The girl releases all her accumulated rage in one devastating attack. The Lich watches in amazement at the power he himself created. Her strike descends from the heavens, bringing retribution to her former master. Dorgo is shocked as his demon kings fall from a single blow by her hand. In response, he decides to summon his greatest power. The Archlich raises an innumerable army of undead from beneath the ground. Thousands of dead roar as they rush toward the lone warrior. A giant monster rises before her, ready to crush her. But the girl calmly utters one word, "Stand," and the entire horde of undead freezes, obeying her will. The girl commands the entire undead army to surrender to her. Her will crushes the giant monster, turning it to dust. The Archlich cannot believe his eyes. His control over the undead is lost. Now she fully controls the power given to her by the Lich. Dorgo says with feigned sympathy that he understands her anger. He threatens that even after death he will return and subjugate her again. But the girl admits that all this time she only thought about killing him. She launches an attack, catching the Lich off guard with her speed. The girl has created a technique capable of destroying even an immortal soul. Her soul-cleaving strike rushes straight at the stunned Lich. The Archlich watches in horror as the deadly blow comes toward him. Two immortal beings clash in a final desperate battle. Dorgo smirks, not believing such a technique could exist. But his words are cut off by piercing pain as the blade reaches its target. The girl watches as the dark soul of the Lich escapes his body. Her technique pulls his immortal essence into a heavenly vortex. The Archlich's soul explodes in the sky with a blinding flash. All that remains of the mighty lord is his skull fallen to the ground. The female knight utters her final words to her former master. She mercilessly crushes the skull, ending his existence forever. A ghostly image of a king appears in the sky, looking at the girl with horror. One of the surviving kings, buried under rubble, does not understand what is happening. Having taken revenge, the warrior falls to her knees, exhausted after the battle. She breathes a sigh of relief, for her long slavery has finally ended. But before finding peace, she decides to do one last thing. The girl wants to apologize to those she can only meet after death. Her mind plunges into bloody memories of the past. She recalls how under the Lich's control she mercilessly killed someone dear to her. That person was her own father, and she wants to ask his forgiveness. She decides to atone for her guilt by raising her sword above her own head. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out in the darkness, calling someone Damien. He sees before him a girl named Louisa, who asks why he is sleeping on the street. Damien decides this is just a deathbed vision before he goes to hell. He is only confused that in his memories she looks very young. Louisa jokingly asks if he is trying to appease her before a scolding from their father. Like a caring older sister, she calls him home before the rain starts. Damien watches her as she walks toward their ancestral estate. Suddenly his eye flashes and he remembers how he himself destroyed that house. He looks at his hands in confusion, unsure if it was all a dream, or if his human life was the dream and reality is rebirthed by the Lich's hand. Damien picks up an ordinary stick from the ground to test his theory. He decides he will soon figure everything out himself. Approaching a huge boulder, he feels it is the perfect target. With determination, he swings the stick as if it were a real sword. His strike crashes down on the stone with incredible force. Cracks spread from the simple touch of the stick on the boulder. The boy looks in amazement at the result of his blow. He recoils, unable to believe he was able to do such a thing. A mad grin appears on his face because it is simply incredible. The huge stone shatters into small fragments from a single strike. The boy stands at the epicenter of the explosion, surrounded by stone shards. He breathes heavily, trying to comprehend what happened. Suddenly, he is overcome by mad, hysterical laughter. Exhausted, he falls to his knees before the pile of rubble. The sky darkens, and the first drops of rain begin to fall. In the pouring rain, he realizes, this is not a dream. He really has returned to the past. An angry voice of his father rises in his memory, calling him crazy. His father reproached him for only bringing shame to the family honor. His younger brother runs into the room, asking why he beat up the young master. Damien remembers that the cause of that fight was his sister. The sister covers her face in despair because her future was destroyed. Their mother begs him tearfully to explain why he mortgaged their family lands. Because of all his misdeeds, his father bitterly shouts at him, "Get out!" Damien leaves the office, leaving behind his broken-hearted father. But just as he was about to leave, a familiar voice calls out to him. His sister Louisa stops him, handing over a pouch of money. She smiles and wishes him happiness no matter what. Damien painfully realizes that he is the cause of all her misfortunes. He cannot accept her sacrifice, for she deserves happiness, not him. Unable to bear the guilt, the boy runs out of the house, leaving his sister behind. Damien recalls the day when, as if escaping, he fled from home. It was then that he first experienced what guilt and shame truly are. He still cannot understand how he managed to return to the past. The boy only wanted to apologize to his family, but did not expect such an outcome. He wonders if it was a true divine miracle. Damien realizes that at this time his body should not have possessed such strength. The name of the technique he used comes to mind: breakwater. It is a skill that greatly amplifies the power of any strike. He remembers that he gained this ability in his past life. He acquired the technique by killing a knight nicknamed the Fortress Wall Breaker. Suddenly his thoughts are interrupted by an excited shout. One of the estate's servants runs toward him at full speed. The out-of-breath young man is a servant whose name Damien cannot recall. He tries to remember. It seems his name was Victor. Victor asks why he is still not home since Lady Louisa called for him. The servant reports that the head of the family is furious, but Damien does not understand what he has done. Victor is puzzled, wondering if the young master truly does not know the reason. The boy is indeed confused as he remembers nothing. At that moment, a furious shout from his father echoes from the mansion. Before he can take a step, a cane swings at him. Damien easily stops the blow, shocking his father with his strength. His father falls to the floor, his eyes burning red with rage. His mother and sister try to hold back the enraged father, who shouts about shame. The boy realizes he has returned exactly to the moment when he was kicked out of the house. His sister begs their father to reconsider, asking if he intends to kill Damien. He looks at his father, mother, and sister, remembering how long it has been since they scolded him. A nostalgic smile appears on his face because he missed them so much. A tear falls from his cheek, and his sister thinks their father was too harsh. After clearing his throat, his father demands that Damien immediately start defending himself. But the boy calmly replies that he has nothing to say in his defense. His father is bewildered because for the first time his son has no excuses. He cannot believe his ears since Damien was always pathetic in his attempts to defend himself. The boy admits that he has disgraced the family honor and that it is entirely his fault. His father smirks, not believing it will be so easily forgiven. But Damien interrupts him, promising that he will make things right. He steps forward resolutely, determined to atone for all his mistakes. The boy heads toward the exit to immediately get to work. With a confident smile, he promises to accept any punishment upon his return. The family is in complete confusion. The father wonders if his son has lost his mind. Damien sets off for the trading city of Landwork to begin his journey. Upon arriving in Landwork, the servant reports that they have reached their destination. Victor is worried because rumors say this place is controlled by a dangerous syndicate. Damien offers the servant to leave if he is afraid, but Victor refuses to abandon his master. The boy smirks, assuring him he will just apologize and fix everything. Victor watches him hopefully, wishing that everything will be all right. Damien walks confidently through the yard, his gaze falling on a cross on the roof. He thinks that if the gods gave him a second chance, he cannot let it slip away. An image of his family appears in his memory, whom he will no longer hurt. The boy recalls his shameful talent, trampling on the future of his loved ones. At the entrance, two thugs meet him, reminding him that he is not welcome here. He barely remembers their faces, but they seem strangely familiar to him. The boy calmly states that he wants to apologize to the owner for his past behavior. The bandits laugh at his words, thinking he is just pretending to be noble. One of them recalls rumors that Damien is a scoundrel from a worthless family. Suddenly, they remember that he has a beautiful sister. One of the thugs grabs his hand, declaring that he has changed his mind about the apologies. He proposes a deal. Damien introduces him to his sister, and the apologies will be accepted. Damien barely restrains the bandit's hand, realizing how hard self-control is for him. In an instant, he draws a knife, realizing he has overestimated his strength. The enraged bandit does not understand what is happening and lunges at Damien with fists. But Damien is faster, and the bandit's hand falls to the ground. The second thug freezes in horror, his strike suspended in the air. Damien offers to show them what the son of a viscount is really capable of. A sinister spark lights up in his eyes and a dark aura appears behind his back. From afar, the loyal servant Victor watches all this in horror. He screams in panic because his master promised to just fix everything. The noise attracts the attention of passers-by, but they do not dare to come closer. The surviving bandit threatens Damien, but he does not care at all. He shouts that no one has ever left the Black Snake Gang alive. Hearing this name, Damien finally remembers who they are. Damien recalls that the Black Snake is a gang that terrorized the entire city. A memory surfaces of the day he quarreled with them over an inflated bill. Then he, weak and defenseless, received a crushing blow to the face. He was publicly beaten, forced to kneel and beg for mercy. But now there is a sinister smirk on Damien's face, for it is they who must apologize to him. The surviving bandit, unaware of this, threatens him with a sword, promising no mercy. The thug lunges into attack, raising his sword for a deadly strike. However, Damien easily dodges and the bandit flies past in shock. Losing his balance, the attacker crashes face first to the ground with a thud. Damien grabs him by the hair, declaring that even their deaths will not be enough. Damien presses a knife to the bandit's throat, ready to do anything for his family. In the next moment, the sound of slicing air is heard. The young man calmly stands over the fallen bodies. His business here is not yet finished. Suddenly, a question is heard. Who is this insolent one who dared to cause such a scene? Reinforcements rush in at the noise, more bandits from the Black Snake. Their leader tries to understand if he is from a rival gang, but Damien states he came with a complaint and demands a meeting with their boss. The chief does not understand his audacity and threatens to beat all the nonsense out of him. He orders his men to deal with the insolent youth. The bandits charge, but Damien only sighs wearily, considering it a waste of time. Damien merely snorts contemptuously in response to their threats. In an instant, he rushes through the crowd, leaving only flashes of blade behind. The leader stammers in horror, unable to believe what is happening. All his men are defeated, and their cries of pain echo through the yard. Damien breathes heavily, realizing his body is not yet accustomed to such exertion. The frightened leader immediately begins to apologize, begging for mercy. But Damien, putting on a mask, lunges at him, unwilling to forgive. A powerful blow sends the bandit flying, ending the fight. Meanwhile, life goes on as usual in the local tavern. Among the visitors sits a young man, and at the next table works a familiar girl. Damien smirks, thinking he may have overdone it a bit. In the next moment, the gang leader already holds a knife to his own throat. Damien says he should have listened while he was being kind. He bursts into the tavern, and all the patrons freeze in horror. The young man removes his mask, biting the knife and showing his determined gaze. The patrons panic and scatter, screaming in terror. Damien calmly states that now that the obstacles are removed, they can continue. Suddenly, an angry shout comes from above, demanding explanations. The tavern owner, Anderson Home, angrily asks where his guards have gone. Damien calmly replies that he dealt with the guys outside, shocking the owner. Anderson cannot believe his ears. This guy defeated the entire Black Snake? The owner demands a name, and the young man introduces himself as Damien Haksen. Damien states he did not come for a fight, but to receive an apology. He reminds them how he was beaten and thrown out for complaining about inflated prices. Because of this incident, he gained a reputation as a drunkard and troublemaker. This disgrace cast a dark stain not only on him but on his entire family. Clenching his fists, Damien says they lost too much because of this. The tavern owner only mocks him, asking if it is about honor. With a sneering smile, he adds that the Haksen family has no honor left anyway. Anderson calls him a foolish nobleman who does not understand his place. Anderson mockingly asks if Damien really thought he would apologize. Damien replies with a dark smile that he was ready to forgive him for apologizing. But since the owner chose this path, so be it his way. In the next moment, Damien leaps to the second floor to the shocked Anderson. Wearing a mask, he lunges at the owner, promising he will pay for his words. His gaze is full of determination, and a knife is tightly clenched in his hand. Suddenly, a mysterious shadow appears in his path. An unknown masked figure blocks Damien's strike, and their forces collide. Thrown backward, Damien is amazed to feel an energy unknown to him. He lands on the first floor, while the mysterious protector stands before Anderson. Anderson greets his savior, Sir Ted, with relief. Damien tightens his grip on the knife, surprised by the appearance of such a strong opponent. He does not understand why someone so skilled works in such a place. The young man directly asks what the knight is doing in this tavern. The mysterious protector with red eyes silently looks at him. We are told that knights dedicate their lives to martial arts. Their skill determines their rank: trainee, apprentice, or official knight. Official knights are those capable of freely using aura. They can destroy mountains and cut through castle walls as if they were paper. Hearing this, Anderson begins to laugh maliciously. Anderson boasts that Ted is an apprentice knight, close to the boss of the Black Snake. Damien looks down at them, thinking that he is just an apprentice. He smirks as this explains the weak aura he felt. The knight is shocked. How could Damien sense an aura he hadn't even materialized? Damien thoughtfully says he now understands why such a person works here. He explains that Ted was expelled for incompetence, never becoming an official knight. The word apprentice enrages Ted, and through gritted teeth he postpones the payment discussion. The furious knight jumps down, promising to first tear Damien's mouth apart. The sword descends directly toward Damien's head, but he remains completely calm. Damien easily dodges, and the knight's sword crashes into the floor with a thud. The knight rises in fury, unable to believe Damien dodged. Damien notes that for an apprentice he is quite skilled, though wild in his swings. He continues to dodge easily, sliding across the floor from another strike. However, the young man realizes his body is at its limit, and he lacks endurance. Enraged, Ted shouts that now he will definitely get this boy. The knight concentrates all his aura, preparing for a decisive attack. Damien recognizes the move. His expression turns serious. Ted unleashes his secret strike on him, putting all his strength into it. But Damien calmly decides that against such an attack, an appropriate technique must be used. Suddenly, Ted is pierced by a memory of a crushing defeat by a warrior named Dorgo. The image of the legendary assassin Dorgo emerges, who believes the world would be boring without people. In his memory, he stands in a forest before a formidable knight in armor. Dorgo orders the knight to leave if he does not want to share the fate of the fallen. Bodies lie around them, and the knight looks in horror at the invincible assassin. The memory breaks off, and Damien's face merges ominously with Dorgo's image. The young man's eye flashes red, and he promises to show Ted his secret technique. Damien explains that at his skill level, one can see the water inside a person's body. He uses the Blade of Death, a technique capable of cutting an enemy even with a wooden sword. With one strike, Damien throws Ted back, reproaching him for not leaving in time. Suddenly, the knight's body turns into a gruesome, bloody mass surrounding Damien. In his death agony, Ted sees Damien as a demon, wondering why he is still alive. A thought flashes through his mind. Could he be facing the undead? Damien stands before him, enveloped in an aura only the dying knight can see. A terrifying smirk appears on the young man's face, reflected in Ted's eyes. Suddenly, Ted's consciousness is transported into another's memory of a battle with a monster. In this vision, he screams in horror as the monster uses his own technique. Ted's face distorts from the death nightmare imposed on him by Damien. And so the apprentice knight lifelessly falls to the tavern floor. Damien calmly reflects that his enemies always die without understanding what killed them. It's all due to his Death Knight ability, to absorb and use others' skills. Anderson looks down in horror at the outcome of the battle. The tavern owner falls to his knees, begging Damien for forgiveness. As an apology, he offers the young man a chest filled with treasures. Damien decides this is not enough but agrees to accept the compensation. He turns and orders someone to come in and take everything. His servant, a boy named Victor, timidly peeks from behind the door. Victor gathers the gold into a bag in amazement, unable to believe his eyes. The servant recalls the fight and wonders where his master learned such sword skills. Damien and Victor leave, while the tavern owner and his men bow to their backs. Victor looks at the bag of money in awe, unable to believe his luck. Anderson angrily threatens to talk to the Black Snake boss and get everything back with interest. But Damien swiftly appears beside him and delivers a crushing blow. Anderson falls, screaming in pain, and Damien says he almost forgot about the punishment. He sends a message through him to the Black Snake. Do not touch his family. Anderson writhes in pain but still threatens Damien with retribution. Damien and Victor calmly walk down the street bathed in sunset rays. Passing by the bodies, the young man thinks this will not wash away his past sins. He looks up at the sky, reflecting on his new life. Damien firmly decides not to disappoint his family anymore and calls Victor home. Finally, they arrive at a majestic mansion, the Lion Bloom estate. Suddenly, we see a memory where a certain young man tells his brother that pain always follows love. His brother looks into the mirror, puzzled about what battle he is preparing for with such a serious face. But the young man only smirks mysteriously and replies no. With a sly look, he declares he is going in search of love. The scene shifts to the Viscount Haksen's estate, apparently where that knight was from. In the morning, Damien stretches sweetly, saying he hasn't slept this well in a long time. Victor complains that he couldn't close his eyes due to worry, recalling yesterday's horrors. Damien reassures him that although things didn't go as planned, they received a generous reward. Moreover, rumors will now spread about what happened to Viscount Haksen's son, and this will change the attitude toward the worthless son of the Lion Blooms, which surprises Victor with its foresight. Victor is concerned because Damien crossed not only the gang members, but also their hired knights. Damien is confident that the Black Snake will not dare touch a noble family. Victor curiously asks where his master learned to wield a sword so well. The young man hesitantly replies that he just trained from time to time, arousing suspicion in the servant. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a furious shout calling Damien's name. A furious bearded man rushes down the corridor at full speed toward them. With burning eyes, he yells at the young man, demanding to know where he was yesterday. The man grabs Damien by the collar, asking if he got into trouble again. Damien calmly asks his father not to worry and orders Victor to show him something. The servant opens the bag, and a whole pile of sparkling gold coins spills out. Damien's father looks at the pile of gold in shock, while his mother covers her mouth in amazement. The young man calmly explains that this is compensation from the tavern where he was allegedly cheated. The father skeptically asks if he can be trusted, but the mother is sure of his honesty. As proof, the young man suggests asking Victor, who flinches in surprise. Damien smiles and winks at the servant, demanding confirmation of his version of events. The servant stammers as he confirms his master's words, and the parents finally believe Damien. The mother proudly praises her son, while Victor mentally marvels at his brazen lie. Looking at his master's satisfied face, Victor realizes he is simply a pathological liar. Suddenly the scene changes, and we see Damien training by running along the edge of a cliff. He stops by a tree to catch his breath after an exhausting workout. Damien complains that his body is too weak and slow for his grand plans, but the young man does not despair and takes something out of his pocket. Fortunately, he has a sparkling potion that he brought with him. A question arises in his mind. What is this mysterious elixir? It is a tonic from the Alchemy Academy, created to increase endurance and energy. Damien asks in surprise, as this academy is famous for its potions. He recalls that their tonics are valued as highly as precious gems. The young man smirks maliciously, realizing how lucky he is. Without hesitation, he drinks the entire contents of the vial in one gulp. His body is enveloped in a powerful purple aura, and he feels an incredible surge of strength. Damien clenches his fist, understanding that endurance is needed for rapid growth of power. He remembers his past life as a mighty warrior and vows to restore his former glory. A sinister figure named Dorgo appears in his memory, waving at him. In a few years, this monster will create an army of undead that will flood the world. Damien grits his teeth, knowing he must become strong enough to kill him before that happens. Determination burns in his eyes because only then will he be able to protect the happiness of his family, looking at his ancestral estate. With renewed strength, he continues training, promising to definitely kill Dorgo this time. Meanwhile, under the cover of night, we see a tower rising above the city. It turns out to be the lair of the Black Snake, adorned with the gang's sinister symbol. Inside the lair, the gang leader, picking his teeth, delivers the verdict. Now he's useless. His subordinates look at the defeated knight Ted, unsure what to do with him. But the boss, Cedric Walker, coldly orders them to abandon him. One of the bandits is surprised by such cruelty, but Cedric is adamant. He states that for money they can hire anyone, and this knight is no longer needed. However, as they prepare to leave, Ted staggers to his feet. Cedric mockingly asks if the knight still has the strength to stand. He cynically offers a deal. Ted will be healed and might be hired again. In rage, the knight lunges at the boss with his sword, shouting curses. But his attack is interrupted at the last moment by one of Cedric's bodyguards. The bodyguard easily throws the knight back with a powerful strike of dark energy. Ted looks at the sword's tip in horror, not understanding what force stopped him. A mysterious mercenary asks the boss if they can make the knight their primary contract target. Cedric agrees, and the mercenary envelops Ted in dark magic while he demands to be released. The knight's face distorts with terror as he realizes he has fallen into a deadly trap. From the darkness emerge eerie, ghostly creatures that attack helpless Ted. One of the monsters sinks into the knight's head, who freezes in fear. The mercenary grins maliciously, listening to Ted's pleas for mercy. The dark energy in the form of hungry creatures completely consumes the knight's body. Only empty armor falls to the floor with a crash, left behind by Ted. Cedric grimaces with disgust, looking at what remains of the knight. The mercenary asks if the boss is satisfied, but he requests cleaner work next time. The leader gets down to business and talks about a new contract on a noble young man. He orders to inflict as much harm as possible on the target, promising a generous payment. Cedric hands the mercenary a pouch with an advance, which he accepts. The mercenary promises with a wicked grin that everything will be done. His eyes glow with a sinister light.